All right. So we're gonna go into a little bit of Gnosis, the Gnosis, which is the core of every advanced spiritual understanding, basically. Um, Gnosticism would fall under Christianity, but again, even in you have Islam, then you have the Sikhs, the Sikhism, and at the core of Sikhism, it's the same goal. It's liberation, which is based on the Gnosis, the primordial wisdom. You believe in the Zohar, if you go deeper into that, the Kabbalah, Panic taught the Kalipah. At the core, there's still this hidden occult, basically forbidden religion, which is hidden because we're talking about seeking the true God, which is higher than what, or the God that most people admire, or at least they understand to be, which is embodied in what you would call now the universe, creation. So Gnosis is the primordial wisdom based on the perspective of the primordial spirit and liberation thereof. So for Gnosticism, or to go to Gnosticism, you'll get basically the clearest, most in your face explanation of the situation. And again, we're talking to spiritually conscious people or people who are seeking what they think is enlightenment or even a higher awareness of what's going on. So this type of knowledge just it bounces off of most people because they're designed to do that. They have to go along with this evolution thing, which they don't even understand. So it's to be expected. Denial is, so someone denies this, that's they're supposed to. It's not about converting people. But this is the transmissions of the Black Brotherhood or the Dark Brotherhood, basically, since what you would call the beginning of the universe. There has been this transmission of liberation from this dense matter, liberating the spirit from this dense matter that we find ourselves in. And you can guarantee that in this third dimensional universe, third density, all the planets, at least the ones who get hip to this, seek liberation or to throw off this shell of dense matter, go back to a higher vibrating realm. Some ascend up the dimensions, even fewer, the wiser ones, return to the origin. What we're caught in here, the origin will be like zero, which is actually, again, a realm in of itself. What we're caught in here is the one, which is not zero, it's a distortion. It's a gross distortion. So the Gnostics, who were basically ancient Egyptians, basically they had some principles here. And one of the principles that they stressed here is basically liberation, is how to get your essence back home. And so they say you can pass from the delusional prison world into the peaceful kingdom if the true good God places you under his grace and allows you to see reality through his eyes. Because what they're saying is the creator of this world is demented. And there's basically this veil which obscures it. So this is intentional. So you could think of the veil as basically the poetry of the world, like beautiful trees, which really that's an arbitrary statement to say, you know, the sunset you think is beautiful. Like, is it really beautiful? What's beautiful about it? You know, the sun is hot. It's too hot, even especially around the equator. So it's vexing. You know, beautiful birds. Like, you know, you see a beautiful bird, and that's, you know, that's but really, they're just flying around looking for worms to eat and shitting on cars and shit. So again, they- they're saying that's the veil. You got to look past the poetics of it. Another veil is the mind and emotions, basically. The thinking, all the emotions, and you know, even love, even worldly love is it keeps you in this net. You know, you can cultivate a true love and share with other people. That's different. But when we talk about worldly love, which that's part of the veil also. It's glamour. It's called the glamour of Maya. So what they stress is getting back what they call to the realm of the good God. Now metaphysically, when they talk about this true good God placing you under his grace, what really happens is once you generate this, the true good God would be looked at as the primordial realm. And once you cultivate this level of energy, you're basically magnetizing yourself back to that realm. And this is done again through the vital breath. You're magnetizing yourself back to that realm. And then they go on to say his grace allows you to see reality through his eyes. Even the Bible says that you can see through my eyes. And that's what they're saying. When you cultivate this energy, it's not just inert energy, like how a scientist would look at it. All energy is conscious. So it's the conscious, but it's what the Buddhists call wisdom. This energy is actually very wise, and you'll begin to see the world through these eyes. You'll look at the world differently and see it for what it really is. So that this is the apple you weren't supposed to, you're not supposed to bite this at. That's the apple. It allows you to see and differentiate between good and evil. And there is a good and evil, by the way. I know a lot of New Age people. There's no such thing as evil. It's just the negative side. No, that's they're tricking you. That's a circular argument to say there's no such thing as this. This is what it really is, but it's the same thing. So the knowledge of good and evil will allow you to see that this world is evil. From its inception, the world is evil. Not to say humans are doing bad things now, so we mean the world from the atom on up is evil. You just observe it's an evil world. So they're talking about getting back to the realm of the good God. And here I have some quotes here. This is this was a book written by a Spanish guy actually, The Mystery of Valencia Vilca, whatever. But he studied Gnosticism, and this is some breakdown, some points to go over. And again, this is not just Gnosticism. This is their description, interpretation of it. Remember, this line of thinking is not just Gnosticism. You're talking about this is the core of Buddhic thought, Vedic thought, Hindu thought. Again, like I said, Christianity, even Judaism, and Islam. At the core is about getting back to a higher realm or to the pure realm. And either way, no, none of them are saying, stay here and look at the trees and build a better future for the children. They're not saying that at all. So it starts off here. All of the universe has been built from a first monad, tirelessly imitated by the demiurge. The demiurge is what they call the craftsman of the universe. That is why the demiurge's essential characteristic is imitation. Meaning he's what they mean is you can look at it as he or this energy or this form of consciousness is the imitation of the true realm. It tried to imitate what it saw and created this world we see, the physical universe. It tried to imitate something it saw in the realm of reality, and it did a botched job. But not only did it do a botched job, it in of itself just by its own nature, created a deranged universe. So the secret lies in knowing the extraterrestrial origin of the human spirit and acquiring enough wisdom to return to that origin, finally leaving forever the insane universe of matter and energy, the insane universe of the created forms. So this, again, is the goal. If you don't get this, then you're confused. As far as the spiritually conscious people, or people who are trying to awaken spiritually, this is the war. This is what's going on. So knowing the extraterrestrial origin, which doesn't mean another planet, is to say this: the origin, you're not of this material universe, or that spark in you is not of this, but the body soul is, but the spirit's not. So it's about acquiring enough wisdom to return to that origin, and that's the key. What wisdom is he talking about? How do you acquire the wisdom? That's when you get into alchemy. So like I said, all this connected. When you get into the Tao, um, and Buddhism, talking about wisdom in life, they're not just talking about, Benjamin Franklin, the penny saved, the penny earned, wisdom. No, talking about true wisdom, which is not of words. And it goes on to say, this wisdom would free the spirit in the origin and would make it more powerful than the creator God. So the force everybody's worshiping is a lesser energy compared to the primordial. And that's, of course, right? Compared to what came before it. It's not necessarily a higher evolved form of it. It's actually happens to be less powerful in negation of it. So by cultivating it, automatically, of course, you're dealing with something more powerful than the creator God. But in this world, where the spirit is chained to the man animal, the creator God's cult would dominate the wisdom. So that's basically what a lot of scholars talk about, or some, very few actually. When you get to the core of it, this stuff is always taught on a certain world, but then eventually the creator worshipping thoughts or theologies take over again. Because just the whole force of matter is going to be against this. And since people are devoted mainly to matter, they don't want to hear it. Most people don't want to hear it anyway. So it lends itself to be covered up and hidden easily over time. And so everything that exists in this world is just a gross imitation of the things that exist in the true world. So this is it's just like a bad portrait of the true world. But not even to say that, it's a distortion, but it's also an intentional deception. So it's not just like someone who's tried to do good but messed up. No, essentially we're talking about it's basically what we call evil. Or it's dissecting. It's negative. So it says the result is evident. A malicious and insane hell in which a long time after its creation, countless eternal spirits were enslaved, chained to the matter and subjected to the evolution of life. So this is another big topic coming up in a lot of conscious people, period. Is this evolution thing and ascension. It's like you're looking forward to evolution, which is pretty sick. Even if you think about what dinosaurs, it's like what they say. Even some scientists would use dinosaurs as an excuse against Christians to say what kind of. Now they're going to add Gnostic and say, well, it must not be a god because what god would make dinosaurs? Yeah, I mean that doesn't mean it's not a god. That just means you might be dealing with a deranged deity. Because yeah, what good god would make dinosaurs? Or what I mean what sound I mean it's kind of even something in you knows this is crazy. Like who set up such a scenario, this this Hunger Game basically with these ferocious beasts, and everybody's trying to survive. You gotta ask yourself, is that really a good scenario to be in? And you really believe that you will be put here to be tested in such a way? So when talking about God, most of major religions refer to the demiurge, the one. So that's the key. That's really the only problem. The problem with religion is not like a lot of people, a lot of intellectuals. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, "Oh, it's all bullshit." No, it's not all bullshit. It's definitely something there. I mean, you don't want to take it that far. There is something there. These guys are not idiots. So the only problem is they turn liberation science into world worship or world validation, or at least world toleration. Just tolerate it. And this is your lesson, and you'll be okay when it's over. Basically. So on Earth, the spirit had been chained to the man animal so that its willpower accelerated the evolution of his psychic structure. So that's what we're dealing with. This basically this primordial force is being used as a battery for evolution. So everybody going about, when humanity's going to evolve, and that's part of the demiurge plan. So there is a plan, and the plan is that's demiurge plan. But any plan, you got to look at the roots of the plan. Look where it started. Like I was on this planet, you got dinosaurs and all kinds of beasts, and you have even plants. Even plants have wars. There's a documentary on internet about plants have wars underneath the soil. The roots fight each other. Like this is not a dance, what some people call it, a dance of nature. This is it's insanity. Like they said, it's the insane universe. Don't try to make sense. Like, why would you? It's insanity. So basically, this enchantment was so strong and so deep was the spirit submerged in the animic nature of the man animal that, forgetting all about its origin, it believed it was a product of nature and of the powers of the matter, that is, a creation of the gods. So that's what people do now, you know. And again, we want to differentiate because it depends on what you identify with. If you're what they will call dead, then you identify with the corpse and the mind, the chattering mind within, and that's you. So yeah, that you was created by God and is appreciated by God for all the food that you deliver, in the form of mundane emotion. But the spirit, the light inside, which is pretty much, now the Buddhas in them said everyone has a Buddha nature, or this inherent nature, which makes sense, because if that's what's powering it. But then you gotta ask them, in most, like on this planet, most people, where is it? Like, it's just very dim, very, 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 very dim and covered over by the matter. So, but that thing that's dim and covered over in most people is the real, that's the origin, which needs to be liberated. So that's the thing that forgets about its origin, or is deceived. That's what they're talking about. So, let's see, it goes on here to say, the normal way of existence of the captive spirit is so essentially opposed to the demiurge's material universe that its only external characteristic is hostility. And even Bobby talked about that, how a lot of the what you call saviors pre the Roman era, and we're talking about history here, they were basically, they kicked ass. They weren't just all about this, hugging everybody and healing. I mean, that's a part of the, but the point was made plain that it was kind of about, raising hell here, in a sense. Because basically, when you're talking about chaos realm, you're talking about bliss, a realm of like they call fullness. It's or what you call openness, chaos, and this is what we're now find ourselves, in the situation of is order. It's dull, it's stiff, it's dense, heavy, it's rigid. So the captive spirit is essentially opposed to that. And so it says here, the material world is pure appearance, pure illusion, pure phenomenon, pure evolutionary process, pure contingency and accident. So just to drive the point home again, accidental. It wasn't supposed to happen. For the spirit, the world does not exist. It is not. But the demiurge certainly is, and against him a combat will be fought for the return towards the origin, for the recovery of the primordial state that we allegorically represent here in the spherical form. So, again, that's what it's about, recovering the primordial state. And the primordial doesn't mean pre, in a sense. It doesn't mean before. No, this is, the primordial is a realm in of itself, which this whole thing is a debauchery of. So the creator God is nourished by a strength that is called human pain, and man generates pain and suffering to nourish the creator of the great deceit. And so one of the first goals of when you follow the return to the origin or the sage way, you have to learn to cultivate a joy, an unconditional joy. And even Jesus talked about it, but people don't really understand what he meant. And a lot of people take it too far and then ridicule it, or they don't take it seriously enough and slight it. So you kind of, but there is something there. A lot of the even the Taoists, even in Buddhism, there's a practice called metta, where you cultivate inner joy and you radiate it outward. This is, of course, to raise you above the frequency of that we're in, because this is a lower frequency. But you do have the free will. You can raise your frequency above that, and you'll be dealing with a higher form, a higher grade of energy, which is not necessarily of this world. Because, like he said, the creator God is nourished by a strength that is called human pain. There's actually forces that feed off of your emotions. So, because he talks about the food chain here, and he says, this world is ruled by an alimentary chain. Every living being eats other living beings, and the humans are not the last ones in this chain. We may be at the top of the visible and material pyramidal system, but our subtle vital energies are also devoured. And that's what's something through the pain. Our subtle vital energies through thought, emotion, these feed on what you would consider a parasite. It says the parasitic demiurge needs this in order to survive himself, because he is a vampire. How do you know he's a vampire? Because the world is designed vampirically. This is the clearest example would be the animal kingdom, of course. Like, there's no justification for such a system of what's called survival, for beings to devour each other. That's unnecessary. Why make a world if you're going to create a situation where there's necessarily suffering? Because they're feeding off of that, the suffering. So, and it says, this creation devours itself over and over again in a cyclical process. So it's like that that picture of the snake eating its own tail. That's how they look at creation, and they're not saying, "Oh, this is cool. It eats itself." No, they're saying this is insanity. So all the serious yogis, all the Buddhas, all the true saints even, this was their goal. You're trying to realize the primordial state because you realize that this is basically not the place to be. And not only that, the place to be, which is the primordial realm, is so much beyond this that even if this even if you could tolerate this, if you only knew how grander in the real reality was, you wouldn't question, you would seek your way back. So it's not to say, this is seeking liberation or practicing alchemy. It's not you're not doing it because you're running from something. You're actually doing it because you want to be somewhere else. You don't. You got to know the goal. And so here's a book here, The Gnostics by Jacques Lecarrière. You can download this on the internet, but I think the full book you have to get it. And this is an overview of Gnostic thought. So one of the questions that come up, or again, a lot of people in the metaphysical community, we have all these Hubble pictures, and NASA has all these photos of planets or stars and galaxies. They don't get they don't have any planets outside the solar system yet, or we don't have a picture of them at least. But they got all these stars and galaxies and nebula, and we're looking at this like children, or we're kind of naive when we look at it because, see, from the Gnostic point of view, well, I'll just read this quote here. It says, "To be vast is good, to be infinite is too much. To possess planets and stars is an incontestable triumph. But to possess them by the million, to teem with stars which are so many eyes trained upon the world each night as if tracking our dreams, is to wield excessive power, to display a very suspect splendor." So that's what he's saying. He's saying everything we're looking at, like, it's so wow. They're saying, well, this is suspect. This just seems like some forces trying to intimidate his creatures in a way. That's what they're saying. To display a very suspect splendor. Something in this immensity turns and meshes its gears with a regularity so precise as to be disquieting. So yeah, it's like, damn, because it's very very. We look at the order of it, and oh wow, that's so cool. It's so ordered. It's so intelligent. The intelligent universe. But again, so something could be intelligent and still not be good, or what we call good, for lack of a better term. Hell, serial killers, they're very intelligent. That doesn't mean you still wouldn't call them good. So this is about the primordial wisdom, and again the serpent, which a lot of conscious people are starting to grab onto this concept of the serpent as not being all evil. But the serpent was regarded as the first Gnostic in the world, the one who possessed primordial knowledge and had tried to communicate it to the first man in Eden. And that's allegory. The whole point is like Prometheus stories, to get man to cultivate the primordial fire. And our matter, because it is heavy, because it is dark, the darkest and heaviest of all, is also the least dynamic, as fixed and as heavy as atoms reduced to their nuclei. The glacial cold of matter and flesh deprived of primal fire. So that's basically back to the goal, the primordial fire. We're cultivating the primal dimension. Because again, the primal dimension is if it, that's the real infinity. That's the real, energy is exhaustless. It's inexhaustible. So to create a world where beings need energy, so they have to devour each other, is kind of you got to think deeper about that. Why would that happen if you're dealing with realm, original realm is full of energy? That's not necessary. So to surrender oneself to weight, to increase it in all senses of the term, by absorbing food or by procreating, weighing the world down with successive births, is to collaborate in this unhappy destiny, to ratify the primordial fall, which is the cause of it, to ally oneself with the work of death undertaken by the being or beings who provoke this tragic cleavage. So cleavage, he's saying when you look in this sky at night, especially, they call it the perforated veil. Like the notebook where you can rip the sheets of paper. It's already perforated, dotted up. It's saying the stars. It's like break in the darkness, which is what you can call the reality. It's like this break in it, and it's like this cleavage. So the task of the Gnostic, the alchemist, is to climb this fatal slope in the literal and in the figurative sense, to try to cross the dividing wall, to regain by a progressive shedding of the alienating weight of his body and his psyche the higher world from which we should never have fallen. So again, that's the goal. So it goes on. Condemns us to live in the darkest circle, this fall which makes man the prisoner of alienating matter. Stars, ether, eons, planets, earth, life, flesh, inanimate matter, psyche, all are implicated, dragged into this universal disgrace. So again, they go on and on about how this is a flaw. This is not the home. All the priests, the a lot of the priests, the ancient Egyptians were pretty much they were Gnostic. Um, there is a book that Panic pointed out by Judy K. King, and she's describing how their goal was to not to be recycled back here. And like you always, like it wasn't about an economic plan. Now, of course, you need a, day to day, but at some point you got to make the decision. What's more important? Is it, trying to make this world right? Which is, it's not going to happen because the people are so devolved, and they basically have fallen into the creature soul. Basically, people don't even breathe right. They have very little connection with the celestial spirit, or even they're not even broad-minded. Like you're just slaves to culture. Isn't it? You're not gonna fix this in this cycle. People are degenerate, basically. I hate to sound cruel, but that's the truth. The chi channels are polluted. Chakras shut down. 99.9% of people. This is why the yogis are so serious about what they do. They're opening those channels back up, purifying those channels. Hell, you can't even get the average person to believe in a damn chakra. So that's how far we are into this monkey. It's basically the monkey soul. It's just surviving, mating, breed, eat, work, toil. It's nothing. They fell into the monkey soul. So in this cycle, you're not gonna get this world. I don't care what system you design. It's not gonna be this perfect world. The people are they're just gonna be rude, basically. So to sum it up, we are exploited on a cosmic scale. We are the proletariat of the demiurge executioner, slaves exiled into a world that is viscerally subjected to violence. And so again, like I was saying, they're not saying, "Oh, the world's messed up, man. The king's taking taxing all the people, and We can't find work, and we need no. They're saying the world itself is subject to violence. I mean, you have to, like, again, you have to look at the machinations of nature and how it's designed. So, the sadistic and perverse demiurge responsible for this world and our existence in it must have racked his brains to find these incredible combinations of molecules, these indissoluble aggregates of matter, which make any escape from the carnal and planetary prison impossible, or at the least, very aleatory or far-fetched. And again, he calls it the carnal and planetary prison. This is not, a plane is a planet or a planet is a plan, and no, it's a prison for the primordial spirits. And like I said, oxygen, for some of you don't, oxygen is a spiritual suppressant. So this whole thing is basically a conspiracy. This is the real conspiracy. I know you get into consciousness, you hear worldly conspiracies, which is true. But then again, that's all based off people's docile spirit mind, or whatever you want to say. That's not really as big of a problem as the real problem. So, the order of evil, which is the inherent order of this world, affirms itself through the constant necessity of destroying and devouring, a necessity so widespread, so planetary, that it places war and nutrition on an identical plane. So again, we talking about wars and all this stuff. Hell, wars, you could justify a war, even if it was unprovoked. You could say, well, I saw down the future that my supply was running out, so I had to jump, I had to make the move, had to do it because they had to eat. Everyone's doing it out of fear of not surviving, which is basically futile because you're not going to survive. But again, they project out. This is what worldlings do, period. Oh, well, the next generation, all this shit. It's delusion. But again, it places war and nutrition on an identical plane because it's the competition for survival. It's not like, shit, on a good planet, or at least this planet, I know, it's not, apples don't grow everywhere. So what you gonna do? You wait for the next animal to walk by, kill it, eat it. That's, again, the order of evil, which is the inherent order of this world, affirms itself through the constant necessity of destroying and devouring. So just the process of it it's a corruption. It's a corruption. So, born of a misunderstanding, of a fall or a split, this failed world still preserves something of the substance of the true world. So that's the seed that they talk about. This is a seed that could be cultivated. Even with all the weight of the matter, there's still a seed that could be cultivated and liberated from the this creation. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is a solution to the problem.